Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
That's what I'm talking about.
You ain't never heard nothing like this. Let me work, show me where the mic is. I'm on stage, black shirt and my Timbs. You know how I do it, I ain't playing with you, I've been grinding. Anybody trying to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Whoa. Everybody got opinions, let it go into my ear, then I block that. Put me on stage, I'ma rock that. Saying you the best, stop that, phony, I am not that. Yeah. What are y'all doing out here? What are y'all doing out here? Maybe you should spend a little less time with the women on your arms and a little bit more.
The blue lady, who's hot?
2nd and 10 as that Tennessee defense drops back. As Long who tried to make a diving tip, that Mahomes who tiptoes inside the 10, still knocked out. Oh, what a run! Out of this world! Touchdown, Kansas City!
I tell you, from the second quarter of last week when they scored 7 straight possessions to what's happened right here in this game, down 10-0, this quarterback has played at a level you just don't see very often.
That right there at the end of that call is what I love to bring back to everybody who says, oh my goodness, is Patrick Mahomes worth what everybody says he's going to be worth? Tony Romo he says Patrick Mahomes make plays you just don't see very often. Like, that is so true, as it is a fantastic day here for Jason Elmquist, myself, all of Chiefs Nation. I think the sports world is shocked at the amount of years Patrick Mahomes just signed to stay a Kansas City Chief. 10-year contract extension. You and I talked about it.
That's
extension.
So he's under contract with the Chiefs for 12 more seasons.
2 more years still left on his rookie deal. 12 more seasons.
So, I mean, it's essentially a lifetime contract, essentially.
Through 2031.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Never heard of anything like that, especially in the NFL. You and I talked about a long time ago, we've talked multiple times about what we think his contract would be. We maxed out at 5 to 6 years, right? Yep. That's what we kind of said.
6 was kind of what I figured what they would shoot for. 5 was probably what Mahomes and his agent would want. But yeah, so the length of this one shocked me. I think it shocked a lot of people.
Oh yeah, the length I think is what got everybody. We expected a $400 million contract somewhere around there. It's going to be well over that. Now, all the reports are saying it's going to be tied to a percentage of the salary cap, which we know raises every single season. So the Chiefs, obviously,
money permitting,
right, exactly.
If this pandemic goes for a few years, that could have impacted the.
All of this is assuming we'll get back to normal at some point here with NFL and the sports world. But look, when I saw this, I thought, honestly, what wouldn't you offer Mahomes? I mean, seriously, I've seen people be like, this is too many years, and some people will be like, well, this wouldn't be enough years at lower contract talks. Well, what exactly wouldn't you offer? Because people bring up, hey, we've seen really good quarterbacks before, and towards the end of their career and longer contract talks, they decline with their talent. We got to remember what this guy has done in 3 seasons. He's 24. Just recently turned 24. And what he's done so far. And people don't seem to forget he could very, very, very easily be coming off of 2 Super Bowl wins in a row, if not at least 2 appearances in a row in those 3 years. Yeah. It's really unbelievable. I think I give credit to the Chiefs for realizing, I mean, they saw right away, right, that this is special. Yeah. This isn't going to be maybe your 2 to 3 year, wow, we would get him while we can. No. They had to lock this up, and to think that they would go in there and even offer that long kind of amazes me that they really just threw out all the punches for this.
And it kind of goes to the dollar figure that I was kind of assuming, because again, Adam Schefter's been the one reporting all the the kind of the numbers that we're hearing here and there. His latest one about 10 minutes ago, the extension is worth over $400 million in total per league sources. The more significant question is how much over $400 million. And that would basically mean that he's being paid at least $40 million a year on average. Obviously, it's going to fluctuate with the whole percentage approach, but that's what I figured. I figured it was going to be over $40 million, and that's what a lot of the national analysts were saying as well. And the interesting thing is, and again, we're going to talk a lot about Patrick Mahomes, but I got to shift real quick. They're keeping him on his rookie contract,
right.
That frees up some wiggle room now with Chris Jones, who's on, who you need to try to get, because that was the other thing at the late last week. I don't think we got to was him making the comment that he'd be willing to sit out this season.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Bell, he's been talking with Le'Veon Bell. I saw a video over the weekend that he's actually been working with Le'Veon Bell and James Conner, and I mean, he already said, that he was willing to sit out this year if he doesn't get an actual contract. And now this frees up, I think, that the space to be able to re-sign him for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, because he wants $20 million a year at least,
Yeah.
and I think it could definitely help it get done, which we talked about it a little bit last week during the show. I mean, Chris Jones is a guy you really don't want to lose. I mean, we talk about defensive linemen. We can maybe go back in the draft and get back. I think people underestimate just how good Chris Jones could be.
If he wasn't a top 10 defensive lineman, it's like, we can maybe hit somewhere else. Like he's, that's as for those in the same division. Think back to when the Raiders traded Khalil Mack. We all thought they were idiots, and I think they still were. But because that's, I mean, it's so hard to get a top 10 talent on the defensive line, and they already have one locked up for a few more years with Frank Clark, and they are in the captain's seat of trying to sign a second one.
Well, the Raiders, when you get rid of a guy like Khalil Mack in that contract, you think of, a good team, a coherent team, would be able to fill that up with decent players like the Chiefs probably could do. Raiders, we know that obviously has not been the case. Here's your resume, okay, for Patrick Mahomes as a 24-year-old Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP, NFL MVP in 2018, two-time Pro Bowl already, first-team All-Pro, 50 touchdowns in one season, the first quarterback with 3 10-point comebacks in one postseason alone, biggest contract in NFL history at 24 years old. That's really mind-blowing. The one right there that gets me is the 3 10-point comebacks in one postseason alone.
Yeah.
Is none of that is possible without him at quarterback. It really isn't. And the way that he did it, unbelievable.
And I think that's why they probably tried to look at a number that big of 10 years. I don't know if he would have just, if they just would have cruised through this postseason, won the Super Bowl, it's like, okay, you still want to sign him. But he showed you something that, and it's funny because, I brought it up to a couple people already. He showed you that something that your previous quarterback didn't have in Alex Smith, that come from behind type of mentality, especially in the playoffs. And there's so few elite quarterbacks that have that gene, especially under the big lights of the playoffs, to be able to so it's worth it. I mean, right now, if based on what his body of work and whatnot, to me, there's only 2 guys I'd be willing to sign to a 10-year contract right now as an NFL quarterback who are still playing.
Okay.
And that's Tom Brady and Mahomes. I wouldn't even Rodgers. No disrespect to my previous co-host, Rodgers, to me, I was never a big fan. I never thought he was, the Tom Brady type guy. Mahomes is the closest thing to Brady I think we've seen, because we saw it this postseason. And we almost saw it last postseason, but a defensive miscue prevented that.
But I think he's even different on a level just because of the types of throws he can make. Like we can go down and find.
I'm just talking about late game.
Sure.
Like that. Not even talking skills.
Yeah, and when the late game and all that stuff too. Find another quarterback. I go back to the Texans game all the time, but find another quarterback who's going to rally you down in a playoff game from 24 to nothing. I mean, seriously.
When nothing's working.
When nothing is working, dudes are dropping passes. We're muffling punts. I mean, it just doesn't. Nothing's
Having
going.
A punt block.
You name it.
Yeah.
It was not going the Chiefs' way. But there's this sense of calmness and confidence that is so. I would think from an outside fan looking, or just another fan of a team looking in, being like, this dude is unhinged, unrattled. Nothing ever changes. And what has always impressed me from the beginning, the first time I ever watched Patrick Mahomes play in the Chiefs uniform, said from the beginning, his leadership is really incredible. Now, he gained that in the offseason before he started. He got his locker room behind him quick. And let's be honest, there was a lot of guys on that team that had been there before he did, skill position players that never had to buy into what he was saying. But they did quickly. That team gelled about as good as I've ever seen.
There was one thing that really hits home for me, and I think especially the OSU fans listening in, who maybe think, well, you're fans, which, as I always tell Tom, short for fanatics. We're going to hype them up like this. Well, when you see former Oklahoma State defensive lineman who played 1 year with Mahomes.
Yes.
Got injured halfway through it. Emmanuel Ogbah quote tweeted when the news was a 10-year extension. Quote tweets it with worth every penny.
Yeah. How true is that?
That's
a defensive guy.
A defensive guy who's now a former teammate.
Yeah.
Played with him for 1 year, saying that Patrick Mahomes is worth every penny that he's going to get for this 10 years.
It reminds me of if you watch the mic'd up version of the Super Bowl on the sideline when the Chiefs were down and Patrick Mahomes made that big throw to Tyreek Hill. They go to the sideline, Frank Clark and Chris Jones, defensive linemen, are saying, we got Patrick Mahomes, man. Yeah. We got this. Like, they were not down at all or like concerned that we're going to lose this game. It's crazy the level of confidence that is instilled amongst players, and I think that Chiefs see how rare that is to find a quarterback truly that can make every single person on that team want to play for that quarterback. And the confidence was instilled in him. They went straight to him and asked him who he wanted in the draft. This is his team. And again, we've never seen the likes of this contract ever before in terms of years.
In any sport.
In any sport, yeah.
Because Field Yates just tweeted out with some of the data coming in from Schefter. The contract numbers, basically, when you factor in the what we know he's guaranteed over the next 2 years, kind of the estimate over the next 10 years, according to Field Yates, again with ESPN, surpasses Mike Trout's $426.5 million for the largest contract ever in North American sports history.
Wow.
So no, it's not just the biggest contract in football, NFL history, in North American sports history. So probably the only contracts bigger are your soccer, European soccer.
Yeah, that's really incredible, especially it's a sport like football. So in the grand scheme of things, are the Chiefs accepting a little bit of risk? Absolutely they are. But with the way that Mahomes plays, we finally saw last year what happens when, even his injury was impressive. Came back from it way earlier than anyone else probably would have. It's just different all across the board. So I think it makes sense, at least if you're going to give a guy a contract this long, it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime player, which I truly believe is Patrick Mahomes. We probably will never see a player like him again in our lifetime. And that's why, I'd play that run, the broadcast of it to open. That was a run. The dude can do so much. Yeah. His skill set is through the roof. There's no play he really can't make. And, again, the biggest thing to me is just the confidence that he instills in the fan base and every player, regardless side of the ball.
What I enjoy about this, the timing of it as well, is over the weekend when I was back home in Kansas City area, I had some friends come. We had a little gathering over at my parents' place, watch fireworks and whatnot. And one of my close friends, growing up, talking about how he doesn't believe Mahomes is the guy. He was like, oh, he's gonna snap like a twig, and I'm just like, oh, okay, but at the same time he's like, but Lamar Jackson, he goes, he's gonna snap. Patrick Mahomes is gonna snap like a twig, and he reminds me of backyard football. And then he goes, but I love Lamar Jackson. I'm like, Lamar Jackson is more backyard football than Patrick Mahomes.
Big time.
If we're being honest. No, and I'm not trying to discredit either one, but it's like if you're saying that you don't like backyard football, but you like Lamar Jackson, it's like, well, Lamar's really good at backyard football. I mean, he runs the ball a lot after dropping back and not seeing a pass.
I think
Mahomes doesn't do that as much. I think what people don't like about Mahomes and why they think it's backyard is and I pointed this out to my friend. It's like when you have the best tight end in the league, the best wide receiver in the league, all you have to do as a quarterback is, create some time for them to eventually get open, because they're eventually going to get open. That's why he's scrambling, and people don't like, oh, he's out of the pocket, this, that, and the other. Well, sometimes you just need to let those two guys get open. And again, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just need Sammy Watkins to burn an all-pro cornerback and drop a dime in there.
Multiple times in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's amazing the time he can buy. And it's become actually such a norm for Chiefs fans. You don't expect him to ever run out of bounds or throw the ball away, because he just doesn't have to. Yeah, with the players that he has, but also his arm talent makes everything that much better, because if you watch, you can go and try to search plays that Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce have made great catches on. The ball is always right there. Yep. You rarely see a ball behind. You rarely see an open miss. Yeah. There will be stretches where every quarterback, including him, will do that. But and I think what your guy was telling you too, kind of the backyard football, people see the left-handed toss and they see the no look and they see everything else, the crazy type of throws that no quarterback would ever even think about making. That's where people be like, he's, that's not real football just because he doesn't sit in the pocket all day. The dude doesn't. I'm telling you, when I say he's different, I'm not meaning that he's unlike anything that this guy's ever. No, he really is unlike anything anybody's ever seen in a lot of ways. He did so many plays, by the way, in his MVP season in 2018, where it was almost like, okay, he throws for 260 yards or something like that. It was a low game, something like that. Oh, where was the no look throw? Where was the left-handed toss? His creativity and his grasp of the game at such a young age too. I mean, he acts like he's been in the league for 10 years. Let's be honest, he really is. Yeah. And that's why I think so many people are going to be really behind this, because think about a lot of players if they got a 10-year deal. Other than Patrick Mahomes today, what do you think the reaction would be from mostly everybody?
Yeah, well, like if Dak right now, people would be like, why? Yeah. That would literally be my response is why 10 years? Like, again, that's why I've said, just a little bit ago, there's really only two quarterbacks that I would say, again, if I knew I was getting Tom Brady in his prime, I would say, lock him up for 10 years.
Sure.
Patrick Mahomes, lock him up for 10 years. Lamar Jackson, maybe. I want to see another year from that's because that was the thing. Like this past year, I was still hesitant a little bit on Mahomes because, like, okay, he now the whole everyone's got the film on him. What can he do now in this second season?
And that's what everybody said, right? The people that doubted said this would be the year that defensive coordinators figure him out.
And what's funny is so many people are like, well, his numbers went down. It's like, he also missed 3.5 games.
Exactly. And was he going through the roof all the time with every other game? No, he didn't have to.
No.
He didn't have to. The defense was alive again, too, and they made a lot of plays.
And that's the thing I think why I'm somewhat comfortable with it, because I know some people are going to be worried about, man, that's a big gamble if he gets, serious injury. I mean, they're, whatever. But at the same time, if there's serious enough injury where he's, ends his career, you can write that off and it's no big deal. But it's a case for me where when you find out that, he dislocated his kneecap, and then they say, well, it could have been more severe, but we found out that he's ambidextrous, or has double jointed.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, so he's another freak in that sense, because not everyone's, because my wife she'll be able to like reach behind her back and in a weird way to scratch her own back, and I'm like, how can you move your shoulder or your arm in such a way? And he's able to do that because he's double jointed, and I think that will help him potentially when it comes to injuries, because we saw that.
Yeah.
Because we were told with a dislocated kneecap that he should pretty much been done for the season.
That was the initial response.
Right.
Yes, if you remember correctly, it was, if that's what everyone says it is, he might not be back this year.
Right.
Then it was 3 weeks later, and we see video of him practicing, and we're like, what are you doing right now, dude?
Yeah.
Like, are you serious? We're not great with Matt Moore, but we're serviceable as Chiefs. But the fact that he then came back and was still able to make plays like we just started off the show with in Tennessee, that shouldn't happen with the guy that dislocated his kneecap. Yeah. So and that's another way to explain the difference is the toughness too is there.
Let's think about that, because that's something, even going back to the playoffs, I don't think we ever brought up. He put together 3 playoff comebacks, including one from 24 down, won a Super Bowl, and technically was not 100%.
Yeah, no, he never. He would say that he was feeling fine, but if you ask any of the doctors, and they all said,
because they still said there was like a 10% chance of redislocating that knee.
Yes.
Obviously, before he dislocated that knee, he kept getting his feet stepped on, his ankles rolled up because Eric Fisher couldn't block anybody.
And every time that happened in the playoffs, right, we all took a big deep breath because we thought that would be it. Another possible resurgence of that injury, and he's done.
So he still did all that stuff in the postseason, and we always forgot the fact that technically, dude dislocated his kneecap a month and a half earlier, 2 months earlier.
He won a Super Bowl and didn't even play a full season. I mean, it really is remarkable what he has done at such a young age. That's why, really, when you think about it, and people will be like, well, I can sign the players forever that they want around him. The Chiefs have now been able to establish a quarterback that's good enough that even if they do lose a player or two here and there down the road, they can put guys in this system that will find a way to succeed. And that's Andy Reid, and that's Patrick Mahomes.
And that's why I had to do a kind of a I told you so with a buddy of mine who's also a longtime Chiefs fan, because about 5-ish years ago, most of Chiefs Kingdom, it was, I love Alex Smith. He's great. We can win with him.
Sure.
And my response was, no, we can't.
Yeah.
We need better.
Yeah.
It's like, because I was always with him, I felt that Chiefs had to have a lead going into the fourth.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
And now all these people have totally forgotten about Alex Smith.
What blew my mind during the whole Alex Smith time, and we even talked about it, I've talked about it to a bunch of people when Mahomes came onto the scene, was it felt like almost either Alex Smith didn't have the ability to go open the playbook and go downfield as much as we wanted, or he just really is not comfortable doing it and wants to check down more than. But as soon as you saw Mahomes come in, it was down the field action. It's like they open it up. And occasionally you'd see Alex Smith go down the field. He can do it. So I think there was a little bit of a two-way street there with coaching and the ability of Alex Smith to just never connected enough to get the Chiefs deeper than they probably should have gone in the season. But that's what you get with a guy like Patrick Mahomes, the ability to not only make incredible throws, but his decision-making is pretty darn good too, okay?
Yeah.
The interceptions have been very low over the first 3 years.
And here was my other knock with Alex Smith, because everyone kept talking about him and stuff like that. Keep this in mind. When Alex Smith was the starting quarterback, because people want to talk, Patrick Mahomes has all this talent around him, though, offensively. When Smith was here, he had guys on offense. Your leading rusher for several years was Jamal Charles.
Yeah.
You had Kareem Hunt before, all of his off-the-field issues. Again, you had Travis Kelce here. You didn't have Tyreek Hill until Smith's last year. But here's the other thing. Here was my biggest knock and my biggest worry, once we saw, when Mahomes took over of, okay, can we sustain this as well to help him? Smith couldn't do much of anything with that team. That those teams couldn't win hardly anything in the postseason. Every year that Alex Smith was starting quarterback, they had a top 10 defense.
Yeah, wow.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, people forget that, don't they?
Yeah.
And just like you said, Kelce was there, and he played with Dwayne Bowe, didn't he, for a while, I think?
I think I don't know. Bo's last, I'm just looking at your top receiver and stuff like that. The last time he was the top receiver was Matt Castle's last year.
Okay.
Jamal Charles was your leading rusher and receiver in Alex Smith's first year.
Oh, we know.
Not surprised.
We know. Alex Smith dumped that ball off a lot.
But that year, the defense ranked 5th in the NFL in points per game allowed.
Yeah. Imagine if the defense in 2018 was like they were this past season with Mahomes' his MVP season. I mean, you can't tell me we wouldn't be looking at 2 Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah, they went that year when, again, with Jamal Charles, Alex Smith, top 5 defense. They went 11-5 and lost in the wild card.
Wow. Yeah, it's really unbelievable. Again, Patrick Mahomes signs a 10-year extension to stay with the Kansas City Chiefs, putting him at a 12-year under center deal coming up for Kansas City. The numbers have really yet to be released, but we do know the extension is over $400 million, no doubt about it. Chris Young planning on joining us later in the show. Is that still a go?
Yeah, he's
okay.
Because I don't know what he's got going on or whatever, but when I sent him the tweet that I saw, I was like, you got to join us to join the celebration, and he said he should be able to towards the end of the show. So we're going to bookend the Mahomes happy hour with, or I guess 2-hour show on Mahomes with some Chris Young.
Awesome. He's coming up later on in the second hour. When we come back, Mike Gundy and Mike Holder back in the headlines. We'll talk about that next.
When the devil finished, Johnny said, well, you're pretty good, old son, but sit down in that chair right there and let me show you how it's done. Fire on the mountain, run, boys, run. The devil's in the house of the rising sun. Chicken in the bread pan, picking out dough. Granny let your dog bite, no child knows. The devil bowed his head because he knew that he'd been beat, and he laid that golden fiddle on the ground at Johnny's feet. Johnny said, devil, just come on back if you ever want to try again. I done told you once, you son of a bitch, I'm the best there's ever been. He played Fire on the Mountain, Run, Boys, Run. Devil's in the house of the rising sun.
Welcome back, Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Jason Elmquist on Monday. Oh boy, it's a good day for Chiefs Nation. But it is also a sad day because Charlie Daniels passed away. You heard his classic there. Devil went down to Georgia. Well, Charlie Daniels joins the long list now of legendary country music stars that passed away today. Or not today, I should say this year so far. John Prine, Charlie Daniels, Kenny Rogers, Joe Diffie, just to name a few. Man, it's been a bummer. Continuing to hear that. He did pass away of a stroke is what I read. But Charlie Daniels' many classic hits, and that one probably, obviously, the biggest. Everybody knows Devil Went Down to Georgia. It's about as classic as you can get of a song, so definitely a sad day for any country music fan, any fan of music, really, in general, knows Charlie Daniels, so it's definitely something that, man, I just kept saying, Jason, all these country stars that have passed away this year alone. Yeah. Charlie Daniels now on the list. That's a bummer. So yeah, we're definitely gonna play a couple of his songs, get his voice out there. As we will, that's the best part about musicians. Voices live on forever in today's day and age, so that's definitely a plus. Mike Gundy, over the weekend, I'm sitting there and I get a notification that Mike Gundy got his contract reduced a little bit. That was one of the initial talks with all this coronavirus stuff was. Mike Gundy was asked about the contract at one point and said, we'll see what happens, basically. Was the response? I don't want to talk about that right now. Maybe that's what it was, yeah.
Pretty much, to summarize, it was I don't want to talk about that right now. Right. And he kind of played it off as I don't want to create animosity and stuff like that, for coaches and whatnot. And then also the fact that, if you cut money from the coaches, that takes money that you can pump into the economy and stuff like that. So
his contract was shortened from a 5-year rollover to 4 years. With the $1 million pay cut there. His buyout was also reduced from $5 million to $4 million as well. But according to Mike Holder, all of these adjustments were from Mike Gundy himself. He apparently went up and said, look, this is what we should do, recommend it, and they got it done. Listening to the entire Mike Holder press conference, which then followed, he basically said, look, after our investigation, we did a pretty thorough job of it, according to him, and says, we found out there wasn't really any racism going on and anything like that. There's a lack of communication between coach to player.
Yeah.
And, we've hit on that a ton. That's really seemed to be the case for a lot of these players, former players too. And it's going to be a mix to me because there is one side where I know, 100-plus football players, you're not going to be able to be buddy-buddy with them. It's just impossible. But at the same time, you do have to form some sort of camaraderie between you and players as a whole. Now, whether that means, and I think what the issue was too this year, which kind of blew it up besides all the tweeting and whatnot, was, there wasn't really an opportunity so far this season to get everybody together and go do things like with social distancing and all that stuff going on, maybe like they have done, I've heard they've done in the past. I don't know how recently this has all been happening, but I think there is a heavy mixture there.
Well, and I think what's more telling or damning is the fact that it's, you can argue the face of the program right now, who is, kind of is leading that charge of the, essentially there's a lack of relations. Like, how do you not have a solid foundation relationship with a Heisman hopeful who you just, had to carry you to, to a winning season last year with over 2,000 yards rushing? Like, how do you not have a relationship with him? To that extent, because that's the thing is because people might argue, well, it's hard and this, that, and the other. Like, if the player and the coach, and again, I think it's both ways, but if the coach thinks that or wants to, he can, because I know for a fact, talking with the one instance we got to talk before spring workouts got canceled, was talking with Spencer Sanders and Casey Dunn. And, I did a story on kind of the rapport that they already have, even though Casey Dunn's a wide receivers coach. And they both talked about how Spencer Sanders is over at Casey Dunn's house almost, 2 or 3 times a week, and they're going out fishing together. Like there's ways, especially if you're Mike Gundy, with how many guys we hear that come in that have the hunting and fishing background, which is what Gundy does.
Sure.
Like how you can't even just say, hey, let's all, whoever wants to go fishing, let's have a big fishing tournament or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I would think that would help bridge those gaps. And to me, I think the biggest thing it kind of tarnishes is Gundy's preaching of the whole cowboy culture. Because now you're finding out that what is the cowboy culture? Because it was always supposed to be, this family tight-knit thing, but now you're hearing that the part of the family doesn't think that it's actually a family. Like they're a family within, to each other, but the guy at the top of the food chain isn't treating you like family.
Yeah, and I really do wonder, was there this really big disconnect, honestly, where players really came up and honestly said, I did not feel like I could go knock on Mike Gundy's door or send him a text or call him with anything. And then that's kind of what I wonder. Was it really that big of it's almost like, okay, on the field with Coach Gundy, I'm a player, but the second practice stops, it's like, okay, he's over here and I'm over there, and that's it until we come back tomorrow. To me, if that's the case, that's not right. Yeah. That's the thing. It's extremely hard.
Yeah.
Okay, to be a coach of a Division I college football program, you have a lot of responsibilities there. And like I said at the beginning, you're not going to make everybody happy no matter what you do every single year. But there does, and he's done it before. Obviously, we've heard about it. I think he's found a way to balance out, connecting with the team, but at the same time making sure everyone's got their ideas on one common goal, which is we're going to go out there and try to win a championship, which I think that would be the case every single year. So if you can balance that out with finding a way to be a part of these kids' lives, and that includes off the football field, then that's when you find success.
Well, and I can understand, because I can see there's things that I've gotten the opportunity to see where I can see where maybe why the players have this feeling and whatnot. Because, for example, on Tuesdays, that's when we usually have our player availability after practice. They come running in. All the assistant coaches come running in. But Gundy always peels off, and instead of going down into the locker room, it just kind of heads off some other direction. So, and again, I don't know if he has, his coach's show or, if he's got something else that he's needing to do for the program. But if you're a player, you see all of your position coaches running down with you. Just had a great practice, and then the head man's nowhere to be seen. It's either if they're not being told why he's not there, that can create some animosity. Because that's the thing is, if he is going to like his coach's show, although I think it's on Mondays typically, I believe the radio one, but just making sure that your players are aware, like, hey, maybe that's half of the problem, is just letting them know, hey, the reason Mike's not here is because he has, he has to go to the Cowboy Caravan in Ponca City, or he has to do the radio show and stuff like that. Maybe that would help, just communication, because that's the thing is, in my time covering Oklahoma State, it seems like communication has definitely been just off. Like just a lack of communication, just filling in people, and maybe that's what some of this is, because that's what it ultimately kind of sounds like now. Is there's not a solid, and not just with current players, but I listened to Hartley Dykes earlier with Robert, and it just sounds like there's no communication coming in or out of Oklahoma State athletics, but especially with football.
Yeah, and with a program like I said, as big as Oklahoma State, I wouldn't want to try to figure out how to balance having a life and also having a life that is Cowboy football, okay? Right. Because it is. So it would be hard. But at the same time, I've always thought that when you look at coaches that have been well known and much more than their players, okay, make a ton of money, and when you think of a program, you think of a coach before you think of a player, which that happens, especially college football, more than anything, I think. Nick Saban is a worldwide figure, okay? And guys come every single year to play at Alabama, and we don't know half their names sometimes, and then we'll never remember them. It's got to be the same way sometimes with Oklahoma State. I would think that feeling is there. Right. Oh, my gosh, Mike Gundy. It's the first thing you think of when you think of Oklahoma State football. Maybe not of the past couple of years, because this year now, too, because Chuba's been so good. But in the past, yeah. And probably you could go down a list of coaches that have been bigger, and I mean this with all the truth here, bigger than their teams. Yeah. Because it is possible the coaches that can balance out being bigger than their teams.
Yeah.
Find a way and to get on the level of some of these guys.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do.
And I can, because I've actually had people asking me even before all the the more recent things about former players, and I can believe it. When I hear Thurman Thomas or Hartley Dykes and stuff like that, because I had somebody ask me, how often have you seen Barry come back for games? And he is the legend of Oklahoma State football. Mm-hmm. And in the 10 years I've been here, I've only seen him on the sideline, I believe, just twice. And one of those times it was for his son, who would come in as a grad transfer to watch one of his games. I don't even think he came for every single game. And again, I don't know if it's just of his choosing, or like Hartley Dykes says, is sometimes, especially when you're getting older in age, you want to feel wanted. Even now, that 36, you want to you respect when you appreciate when somebody reaches out to you instead of you constantly having to reach out to them. So, and especially when it's your alma mater, a place that, as a football player, you put 4 or 5 years, blood, sweat, and tears. You helped create the foundation, all this other stuff, and you can't even get a hey, can you come back for this game, or this, that, and the other. Or from what Hartley Dykes made it sound like, is just having it an easier means for people to come back.
Yeah, and I can get how that would be frustrating, especially if you were a guy that made a significant impact. Okay, it'd be different. Let's be honest. We're not going to remember everybody that played at Oklahoma State. We just aren't. Especially when you're down there covered up with a helmet. I mean, seriously. Yeah. But a guy that made an impact, if that's still the case today, I can understand frustration.
Well, because and I think Hartley talked about it a little bit, but and it's not just with him, but you go around Boone Pickens Stadium, and inside or outside, I believe all you'll be able to see, there's more up in the coaches' offices and whatnot, but those are only privy to players, coaches, and recruits. Is right? It would be the west end zone. You have some portraits and windows of former players, but if I recall, most of them are Gundy era players. Like I've never seen. I don't know what Hartley Dykes looks like. I don't know what number he is, because I've never seen anything around Boone Pickens Stadium.
Number 11, I can tell you that's what his number was.
Because you found that photo attached with the yeah. But him, Barry, again, I have argued this for 3-4 years now. How does Barry Sanders not have a statue here?
Yeah. That's interesting.
You want to talk about disconnect with or not holding tradition to your... And again, I know Gundy's talked that it's in the works, but it's like, why is it taking 20 years to be in the works? I mean, you go down just north, as much as people hate being, people around here bringing up OU was already within 2 to 3 years after every single Heisman, which they win more often, so they have to spend a lot more money on statues. Within 2 to 3 years, they typically have. I think they were supposed to this spring football game. We're supposed to unveil Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray Heisman trophies statues down there.
Okay, that was supposed to happen this year.
That was supposed to happen this year.
Yeah, they don't waste any time, do they?
And Oklahoma State can't even get one for Barry Sanders. Or again, if you don't right now, put a plaque or fill one of those windows. There's when I walk around Boone Pickens Stadium, I couldn't have told you, if I didn't know the background, I couldn't tell you that Barry Sanders played here, that Thurman Thomas played here, Hartley Dykes, even Mike Gundy. There's nothing of even Mike Gundy around Boone Pickens Stadium as a player. That, to me, is why I can understand the criticism, especially with the Tulsa World story with Hartley Dykes earlier today, is there is a disconnect within this program and the past.
Yeah, maybe that is the case. I mean, we're seeing more and more people come out and basically say that. So when we come back, we'll play the intro, actually, that Mike Holder gave to his press conference. It, I think, told a lot in the minute and a half or so that it is. We'll play that, talk about the rest of the topics surrounding all going on with Mike Holder and Mike Gundy over the weekend. Since we were off Friday, we have a few days to fill up here and talk about it. And then in hour number 2, we'll get into a lot more. We have a ton of stuff to get into today. There was actually a couple of parties that were thrown in one section of a college football world that were, well, let's just say irresponsible. We'll talk all about that next. Still to come on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
on my own. If you don't like the way I'm living, you just leave this long-haired country boy alone. Preacher man talking on TV, putting down the rock and roll. Wants me to send a donation, cause he's worried about my soul. Said Jesus.
Welcome back. Afternoon Sports Drive, wrapping up hour number 1. More Charlie Daniels for you. A lot of people remember the legend who was. Passed away today at the age of, I think it was 80, if I remember right. Passed away from a stroke, so... The legend, Charlie Daniels, no longer with us, but his music lives on. We're going to play Mike Holder's intro to his press conference he held on the 3rd. I think this tells a lot in a short amount of time. Here's Mike.
All right. First of all, welcome, everyone. Day before the 4th of July. I hope everybody stays safe and has a happy 4th. I'll just say this. On June 16th, Chad Weiberg and I began a journey seeking answers for the multitude of questions being asked about our football program at Mike Gundy. Our only goal was to follow the truth wherever it led us and make the best decision or decisions for Oklahoma State University. No agenda, preconceived notions, selfish motives, or nod to public opinion. We listened to multiple current and former players and asked probing questions about their experiences. The more we listened, the more we learned, and a common theme began to emerge. This wasn't about a T-shirt. This was about a lot of things. We learned that all the players love and respect Rob Glass and our strength staff. It seemed to be counterintuitive that the most demanding person in the university would be university loved. Why? Because the players know that he cares about them. The same goes for Rod Johnson, a behind-the-scenes superstar on our staff. He knows every player, their families, and will do anything for them. He's a 24/7, 365-day-a-year ambassador for all that is good in society. We learned that our players love OSU. They love being on our football team. They love their teammates. There are a lot more positives about our program than negatives. Players want to be great, and they're willing to make sacrifices. They are unselfish and loyal. Our coaches have done a great job of recruiting high-character young men. The missing link has been a more personal relationship with their head coach. They respect him as an excellent game day coach, but they want more coaching on a personal level. This crosses all racial lines. To a man, our players want a better connection to Mike Gundy. They view him as a difference maker, and they want him to help them grow as leaders. We conveyed this message to Coach Gundy, and his reaction has been everything that you would want. He has been humble, remorseful, and committed to change. As uncomfortable as the last 2 weeks have been, I believe this experience has changed Mike Gundy, and our players will be the beneficiaries. At the end of the journey, the decision was obvious. Mike Gundy is an excellent coach, and he's accomplished a lot in his 15-year career. However, the best is yet to come.
There you go. The best is yet to come there at the end. I think it was obviously pretty important to start off pretty quickly and say, look, this wasn't about a T-shirt. It was a lot more than that. And let me tell you right there were probably, I know this for sure, a bunch of major news media outlets and sports media outlets that were bummed to hear about that, okay? Because they were ready to report that there's been this underlying issue of racism amongst Cowboy football and Mike Gundy. That isn't the case there, and I think that's the main positive you take. Now, when Mike Holder goes on to say, look, we think he's changed. He acts like it. He believes, I think, too, the talks about the contract and all that, and him being the one wanting that to happen, prove it to him a little bit. But he also said that glaring statement right there of they want, players talking here, want a better relationship on a personal level with Mike Gundy. They think he's a great game day coach, and it's kind of what I said earlier. On the field, it's, coach to player, just like it should be. But the second it's off, and I'm not saying that Mike Gundy has to be, around his players and with they don't want him to be that all the time, but it seems, according to at least the report here, the investigation of the players, that he's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
When it's not game time or practice time.
Oh, again, it goes back to that phrase that he preaches all the time. I think what they're wanting is the guy who preaches about cowboy culture to actually follow the same guidelines of cowboy culture, family first and all this other stuff, within the program, leaning on each other and all this other stuff that the fans and Gundy talk about all the time. It sounds, with what Holder said, is it feels like the players don't believe that they're getting that from Gundy.
Look, and if I'm being honest, I think that right there has the potential to could have, maybe not now, but could have hurt recruiting more even than if it had been more than, for instance, just a T-shirt. Like I said, I really think that's the case, because there would be guys that I can't come to Oklahoma State because my coach doesn't care or check in or isn't part of the team when I'm off the field. I think that right there is almost more of a why should I come here situation for some players. But if he comes back now and makes it even more clear, and let's say we hear some I don't want to say reports, but feedback from players that are like, hey, this, he's been checking in on us. He's committed to what we've asked him to change. We're seeing action, not just words. If all this maybe comes out, then yeah, you see maybe the mindsets change a little bit and people kind of calm down on the whole this is going to ruin recruiting thing. Because if this hadn't happened, if this investigation hadn't really taken place and we just kind of gone on with, it'll let itself work out. And then, yeah, we might have seen a little bit of a hit on some guys that say, I want my coach to be more than a coach to me. Because there are a lot of guys that do want that.
Yeah, and I know there was a lot of criticism I saw, I think it was late Thursday night when it was late Thursday night, because it was, to me, it was kind of it looked like a Friday night news dump, because technically it was a 3-day weekend because of the holiday. But you saw a lot of people talking about criticizing how, because in the statement from OSU and from our targets was Weiberg and Holder. Those are your key figures who are going to be doing the investigation, and we're hung up on that because if it was believed that racism was part of this, but I saw at least 2 tweets from Mike Boynton. Beyond, because obviously there were several that he actually tweeted out saying, if you're going to question these 2 guys, don't, these are upstanding gentlemen, stuff like that. But then there were several instances where he actually directly replied to people, where it may sound like he was involved in the quote unquote investigation, probably talking to whether it was players or coaches or Gundy himself on the current topic in the current climate right now of race.
Yeah, Dan Wolken of USA Today, who
got destroyed by everyone.
He has been repeated. This is not the first time he's tried to stir the pot, which literally had what he said, as you kind of just mentioned there, had absolutely no place and made no difference. But he got buried, on Twitter. Like you said, Mike Boynton came out and said, look, these guys, like you just said, upstanding character. Doug Gottlieb went after him. A bunch of big names in sports just were like, dude, seriously? Because at that point, I think people realize that some of these, and he's a perfect example of one of those guys that wanted it to be about racism, because then the way he has covered all of this, it would have been true. And he'd been like, look, I knew what I was talking about all along. No, now you just look like an idiot that's tweeting, and then no one cares what you think. Yeah. So I do appreciate Mike Boynton saying, look, are you kidding me? And not to mention, he even said, I believe on Twitter, look, I was hired by Mike Holder.
Right.
Like, I'm an African-American.
I think he said one of only 5 Power 5 basketball coaches.
Yes.
Who are black.
Do you think a racist person would have done that? No. I mean, so it's people like that drive you crazy, to the point where they even get occasionally someone like a head coach of a basketball team at D1 school to respond and then have to put you in a grave there, basically. It was a pretty eventful weekend with all of that going on. This will be a topic I'm sure we'll get to more of throughout the week as it stretches on. Maybe, just maybe, this is the final step towards officially getting closer to a football season and just football for a lot of people, because I know that's been the rallying cries. Let's get on to some actual sports. Hopefully that can happen. We'll talk about that in hour number 2, because there's been a lot of talk. Is football going to happen in the spring? Is college football going to take place in the spring? Jason and I will tell you if that's a good idea or not. And then in hour number 2, later in the hour, Chris Young's going to join us because it's a beautiful day for Chiefs Kingdom. Patrick Mahomes is a 12-year man. We'll talk about all that on hour number 2 of the Afternoon Sports Drive next.
It's not just.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. I'm ready for the times to get better. I've got to tell you, I've been racking my brain, hoping to find a way out. I've had enough of this continual rain. Changes are coming, no doubt. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. You seem to want from me what I cannot.
Hour number 2 of the Afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. 1020 AM, 1580 AM, 93.1 FM, 105.1 FM, Triple Play Sports Radio app. Thanks for hanging out with us on Monday. Hope everybody had a great, safe 4th of July weekend. It was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun. Jason, you had some time with family. Is that what you said? 4th of July?
Family and friends, yeah.
Some fireworks shot off.
Yeah, well, it was funny because we originally weren't going to do fireworks and it's a family tradition. 4th of July is actually my birthday.
That's right, yeah.
And for 10, 15 years, we've had close friends come over a couple times. Family from other parts of the state come over as well. And this year was kind of with the pandemic and money's tight for everyone. Maybe we just we maybe have a little get together, grill up some stuff, but don't expect a fireworks display. And it was about 2:00 on Saturday. Everyone came together, pulled a little bit of money here and there, and we ended up having our normal big display. It's actually one of those where even our neighbors, they don't come over or whatever, but they'll actually, like, the moment they see us starting, they'll get out on their front porch and watch our show. So no, it was fun. I got to meet my sister's boyfriend as well for the first time.
Did you approve or?
Yeah, good guy.
Okay.
Good guy.
Okay.
I suckered him into going. Oh, I invited him over to we close friends of mine. We went and played some nickel dime quarter poker after the fireworks display, and I invited him over, and he was out of his element because we don't do your casual Texas Hold'em or something. We do like house created games.
Okay.
Games that we've been playing for 10, 15 years that we have to stop to explain to new people all the time. And he held his own, all things considered. Because, again, with nickel dime quarter, we're just there for the camaraderie more so than winning money.
Yeah, sure.
So
okay, well, he's got the stamp of approval for now. Hopefully they can hold on to that. Is he a Chiefs fan? I know you asked.
Funny enough, he's a Bucs fan. He's originally from Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he didn't just all of a sudden become one with Tom Brady. That's
right. No.
Okay.
Because he's a Florida State guy as well.
Okay. It's more acceptable.
he was all on the Jameis Winston bandwagon with the Bucs and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And then, but yeah, we didn't really talk about Brady much. Yeah, I mean, when they eventually go 9-7 and don't make the playoffs, then. It will be an interesting conversation, though, if as long as the season goes ahead, that week that they play each other.
It really will. Yeah, that's going to be a fun game. Either way, regardless of where everyone is at that point, that'll be a fun game. I also love the idea. I've seen, of course, plenty of hilarious reactions on Twitter, even from actual AFC West other teams fans. Just like, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah. Like, this dude in our conference for 12 more years.
12 more years, yeah.
Like, okay, it's going to be like that. Okay. Yeah. So I definitely am glad to be a Chiefs fan.
Things can change. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But right now,
as of now,
you have the best player in the NFL locked up for 12 years.
Couldn't have thought of a better scenario, really, for a Chiefs fan, okay? Because we said 6 years would be that would be fantastic. Could you imagine Mahomes for 6 years? Let's double that up.
Well, and that's what I've been saying, like, to a couple of people. I was like, the way 2020 is going, there's only going to be one group of people who actually can find any glimmer of good from this season, from this entire calendar year, and it's going to be the Chiefs fan base.
It is.
That's Super Bowl. We locked up Patrick Mahomes for 10 years.
That's what I said. Was
the rest is just
I saw on Twitter too. Wow, happy sports news. Like, there's a lot of people, that has not been the case. It's been everything else, and finally some seriously good happy sports news. And it also plays into it that
does this contract count if they don't even play this season?
Right. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. That has to, right. It's like it has to happen now for sure. And again, I think football, said this over and over, but they have benefited from timing more than anything else, and hopefully they can get it going. Speaking of football, college football. All right. Here's something I saw over the weekend. I was like, is this a real story? Because I really honestly thought it was like an Onion thing or somebody just made it up, whatever. Looked into it. Now it was confirmed last I saw. A famous college football town, Tuscaloosa, home of arguably the best college football team year in and year out for a long time. Alabama. Apparently there were some parties going on amongst college and young age people, and they were labeled coronavirus parties. This is a real thing. Okay, they apparently bought prizes. There was a pot of money, and they had parties with at least one or two known positive coronavirus cases amongst these students. And the goal was to infect other students. And the first person that could come back and prove that they were the first to be infected with coronavirus won the prizes and the money. Okay, this is a real story. I read that doctors had confirmed that was true because of the patients, as well as it's been documented amongst the state in Alabama. Look, this is wildly irresponsible, and I'm just like, do we want to play football? Like, seriously, like Tuscaloosa, come on. Yeah. I would think that town would want to play football out of all the towns in the United States of America. That's not going to help anything, okay? I mean, do we want to have sports at all? Really? I understand. And then that's the thing is I'm for, I don't care if people are out partying, whatever, but if you're just going to be, like, intentionally irresponsible, that's where I draw the line. Okay.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, there's a good chance we may see another spike from this weekend, because kind of like we saw the spike, this current spike, kind of coincided with about 2 weeks after Memorial Day weekend, which is a big get out to the lake, drink, all that stuff. We saw a lot of stuff for like that again this weekend. And it was interesting because a lot of people, I was asking, because they would ask me, so I'd give my opinion and then I'd ask them. A lot of the people that I talked with back home this weekend, when asking them, what do you think about the odds of there being sports starting up, college sports, NFL, and on the current trajectory, a lot of them are doubtful. I think there's a lot of people that are doubtful because everything, whether it's stuff like that or, we're hearing, I think it was a second MLS team actually had to postpone their flying down to Orlando because somebody coming down with it. We're hearing David Price obviously over the weekend, which I think we'll talk about possibly, him announcing he's not going to play. We're not trending in the right direction to make me feel comfortable to say that we're going to have a, quote, normal sports season.
Yeah, no, I
think we may start, and that's what I keep telling people. Yeah. I think we're going to start some things. College football probably is going to try to start, but do we have – I think ultimately one person – or maybe was it Jimmy on Thursday? Someone said recently to me that by October – he doesn't think we're going to have sports.
Yeah, and that's why we've talked about too. We brought it up a long time ago. Is if they had maybe started a little earlier, even thought about that, would we be talking about maybe getting a complete season? And then that's where we're going to move to our next topic when they talk about moving into the spring, possible college football season. I remember when all the options were laid out, amongst college football officials, putting it into the spring season was like last on the list. Let's avoid that. And let's not let it happen. And to me, I still stand by. I think it's a terrible idea. I really do. Do you agree with that, or are you still? Does it seem like it could happen for you?
I think they have to have it no matter what. So maybe they ultimately decide to push it back to spring, with maybe the threat of, hey, since you haven't proven yourself now, and I think it was great. I forgot to mark it down. There was a baseball player, Doolittle, who made the comment over the weekend that I think is spot on. Is sports is kind of the reward for a functioning society. Well, we're trying to bring it back without a functioning society right now.
Yeah, it is, and it's also a part of how well that society does function too, especially in today's world with the money it does generate.
Right.
That's why. But with spring football, that's where you're going to have a lot of issues. Okay, because college football, we've seen it before. It can work sometimes without a ton of star names. It may be the best sport to do that, but in this year, for instance, with some of the most talented players we've seen in college football in a long time, if we moved it to spring, okay, nationally, Trevor Lawrence wouldn't play, Justin Fields wouldn't play. Here, Tylan Wallace wouldn't play, Chuba Hubbard would not play. Okay, that is an issue. But
ultimately, I don't think it's going to impact the revenue though. If you
really, so
I'm saying if. I think if you can guarantee you can have a full 10-game season if you push it back to spring versus we might have to miss half of the season because if somebody starts coming down, I think you're better off waiting for the spring even without those players, because we're finding out, as I saw a tweet today, since NASCAR has returned, they're up 8% on viewership.
Yeah,
and I think football, after you go an entire fall of not even getting college football, people will come back in droves to watch it.
They will. I think that's where we've had this sort of balance in a way, because there's been this talk of, viewership's going to be down in Major League Baseball because of what they did. Well, maybe not, and we go back to because people haven't seen live sports in so long. Right. So that could be the case. The other part of it too, though, is people are like, why would they maybe find a way to play some games as star players? No, because also we have to remember they start training for the NFL around in January.
Yeah,
and the draft,
a week and a half.
The draft. Their NFL is not interested in moving this draft. That has been made clear. It's not going to happen. So that's one reason. The star players are going to be out. They're not going to do it. If they do, it wouldn't make any sense for their game.
That's not going to turn people away from the product.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might maybe not a vast majority, but I don't know, would it take a sizable hit in viewership? You don't think so?
I don't think so.
I think it might dip a little bit. I just, with a team like, for instance, with Clemson, like I'm thinking of with Trevor Lawrence, I don't have any idea who their backup quarterback is, but the interest in that team nationally goes way down.
In any regular situation, yes, I would argue, I could see it taking a hit. But when you haven't had sports, like the sports that you are traditionally watching, your baseballs, your basketballs, your footballs, for ultimately, again, let's say, I think NFL is going to try to go forward no matter what. Again, but even if you have a football NFL season, there's a lot of people who don't care about NFL, but it's all about college football. If you don't have college athletics until February and college football is the first thing, if you go an entire year, people aren't going to care what the product looks like. I think Lincoln Riley's even made the comment that, and this was early on in the pandemic, he's like, even if we have a shortened window of getting guys back healthy and whatnot, he goes, us as coaches, we'll see a difference. We won't see the level that we want to see, but fans won't notice. They won't see anything different. So I really don't think you will, even if you take your the top 200 athletes off the field that are draft eligible. I still think people are going to tune in.
What's possible is if they go to spring and the NFL continues, you get that fan that's all about college football, says, got to watch some football. They turn on the NFL, and they're all of a sudden hooked to the NFL. I think the NFL, if they go on as scheduled with no college football season to even interrupt, they're going to take over Saturdays. Okay, they're going to take over the entire weekend now, right. And the viewership will go through the roof with some of those fans that are only interested in college football for whatever reason. So maybe that's the case too. But also, it's the turnaround, right? That's been the main reason that we've talked about a lot is these guys, like human bodies, are not designed to take the punishment they do in a full football season, right. Turn around in 3 months and do it again. They just aren't, okay, at that level. We're talking about a season restarting. And that's when Lincoln Riley, when he made those comments, said it's doable. He kind of snuck in there too. If you read the full story, well, but if we push back the fall start date, then it'd be a little bit more doable.
Yeah.
If you were to ask the average player, we polled a bunch of Oklahoma State players, said, hey, would you, and those that aren't going to the draft, hey, are you comfortable playing a full, let's say, 10-game schedule here, and then in a couple months going back at it again for a possible full schedule? Would we get a lot of yeses or nos? I think we get a lot of nos. There has to be a certain amount of time where you can recover, and even if that were to happen, injuries are bad enough, they would go through the roof. Because and I really think that's the case. So we talk about all the time player safety. We're talking about it right now with coronavirus. To me, this is still a player safety issue. If you're going to turn it around that quick,
but you got to pump that money back into the state economy.
You're gonna have football for that reason. We know it, and that keeps coming up. I think this is the last idea that college football wants to float. Now you may get a voice like Lincoln Riley that says that. Don't think it really necessarily changes that precedent. I
think we're going to find out because, and again, I know it was on our list, but I think we'll find out. I believe it's Wednesday. The Ivy League. We've heard that Princeton and Harvard are already basically taking the approach of everything being online. They're going to allow some kids on campus, but more of the you need access to the physical building to complete these projects type of approach. But in one of the statements from Harvard is apparently the Ivy League is going to make an announcement on the 8th, which is Wednesday, of what this means for athletics.
Which we had talked about, I think it was last week, when they kind of put out their plans. They had two different options of what might happen. So, hopefully that comes in this week. And, we'll get to that Harvard news later because it's pretty astonishing with we'll talk more details about it.
But I think it's going to be interesting because we saw the Ivy League with athletics set the tone.
Yeah, they did.
For the start of the pandemic. Yeah. But this is also a case we're getting to a point where I don't think they're going to be hurting necessarily for the funding as much as your Power Fives, conferences that rely so heavily on athletics. So, but if they come out and say we're not going to have, because we already know that they're not going to have non-conference football games. If they come out and say we're going to push to spring football, does that then shift the mindset of everyone else?
I think it would make the idea seem like a little bit more of a reality to some people. Yeah. But I don't like the idea of them actually ever thinking that a lot of these ADs, presidents, Power 5 schools are going to budge on this at all if they can get away with it.
But and we have to keep in mind, because we've actually seen it locally. It happened over the weekend. We can talk about briefly. Langston University, historically black college, 20 minutes up the road here, which technically, last I knew, they were they operate under the same Board of Regents that runs Oklahoma State. Announced over the weekend that they're canceling all fall sports.
They did, okay.
Yes, all fall, not just football, everything, or not everything but football. All fall sports have been canceled for Langston University. And then, again, that's technically an NAIA, I believe is what they play in their athletics.
I don't know if I've seen a school yet say all fall sports, besides we've seen a couple D3s and stuff like that say football for sure, but I don't know if we've seen a lot of all fall sports yet. That's
so I mean that's a trend you don't want to see, but as it is with everything, if one person does it, there's a good chance multiple other people will follow suit. Yeah, it just depends on how high up the pecking order that decides to go.
All right, when we come back, we have a lot of stuff still to try to get to here. Major League Baseball is having issues with the coronavirus testing. Talk about that. I got to see the Texas Collegiate League in person on Thursday. It was great. I'll tell you all about that too. Stillwater Stars played on Saturday. They had a low amount of players on that team, but still gave it a shot. We'll talk about all that, and then Chris Young is going to join us sometime here towards the end of the hour and discuss Patrick Mahomes' record-breaking deal. Still to come in the afternoon sports drive.
I don't want to wait for our life to be over. You have it, but you take it how you left it. This is give and take. Take your time, take me under. I want to know, but you show me what I'm missing. In the plane out of Southern California,
the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Jason Elmquist with you here on Monday. On Thursday, I went and checked out the Texas Collegiate League Tulsa Drillers baseball team. That was great. Haven't seen live sports in a long time. It was great to see some baseball, and they packed that place out in terms of how many they were allowed to have. I'd say close to 2,000 people, and that was, obviously they had the fireworks display and everything too. Drillers won 2-1 that night. I believe Max Hewitt had a sac fly. That might have actually been the go-ahead run, too, if I remember correctly. He played great as catcher and gunned down a couple of guys. It was fun to watch. I think he was the main Oklahoma State representation. But the other things I took away from it were people there in a live setting, fans again. It's told
with
there,
or without masks.
Well, that's the thing. It's told there that you're supposed to go, and sit with your immediate family. And there needs to be, I think, 3 seats between every other group.
Okay.
So you can imagine how that is.
Now, I'm curious, though, is it 3 seats just left and right? So people were literally sitting behind each other, which kind of contradicts the whole...
There was the occasional...
Was there an actual stagger?
Yeah, there was the occasional, but I think for the most part, people stood and were able to sit a couple rows back or a row back.
Okay.
So yeah, when you go vertically, it's a little different.
Right.
But you weren't right on top of each other. For instance, the row in front of me was completely open, and there were people in the next one. So, but masks. I mean, if I'm being honest, it was probably 70-20 no mask, 70-20, 70 no mask, 20 mask. And I think the reason, which people have debated mask no mask. That was uncomfortable. It was 90+ degrees, as we all know. But if you want to go watch it,
humidity as well.
It was tough. And here's the thing: the whole social distancing part of it. Okay, this is what I think. If it's going to happen for college sports, it's going to kind of be like I saw there at One Oak, where you can technically social distance all you want in the seats. But I'm telling you, we walk around up there in the concourse. If you go get a beer, stand in line or whatever, there's not any regulation, okay? And
right.
that's what you're going that's what I think it's going to allow people in to do. But that's what we've talked about, is how is it going to be governed and regulated? I'm telling you, look, it just wasn't. Like, you can have the markers on the ground that say 6 feet here, 6 feet there, and all these signs that say there's plenty of Germex stations and all this. But a lot of it is going to... I didn't sign a waiver or anything to walk in.
Right.
All of it is going to be up to a lot of these people that come into these games when they're allowed to say, look, we're going to put measures in place to help out, but are you going to be the ones that follow them?
That's where it brings up the... Should we or will we have sports, during this pandemic? Because people aren't going to abide by those.
They just aren't. I mean, I'm sorry, but unless you, and even if you had people standing up on the concourses telling you where you can stand and whatnot, that's not going to work. I mean, people are going to be like, there's going to be issues arise from that, okay?
Yeah.
So again, it brings me back to I thought the entire time I was there, if they had told me to sign a waiver before I walked in here, would I have done it? Yeah, I probably would have. And I think that's going to be the case. I don't know. I need to try to figure out, can they get away with that in college stadiums? Because we know they can, and it looks like it's going to happen in the NFL. Can that happen for college football?
I haven't seen if it's got passed or if it's moved up or whatever along the chain, but I saw at the federal level a bill was being drafted that would prevent colleges from mandating their student athletes to wear to sign waivers to be able to play.
I had seen that as well.
Because there have been some universities that have already taken that approach. I know East Carolina football, I believe, is one of them off the top of my head. And I think that's fair to say, hey, if you're going to put these guys through the dangers for your personal gain, you can't make them sign off a waiver because there's the health implications. Because that's the thing is, like, if somebody comes down with it, then if you had signed a waiver, well, then that athlete is going to have to foot their own bill.
Right, and
if they come down with
I think that was the reason you guys gave back to me, because I did float you that idea. I remember a long time ago, you and Tom, what if they make players sign waivers? And that's probably not going to fly. Let's go to the phone line. You're on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Go ahead.
Hey, guys, I was just going to ask, how come they're not broadcasting some of these Texas collegiate games, everybody's wanting to watch live sports and new stuff, and instead of putting on games like that, we're still seeing a lot of the old, games from years ago. I mean, this is some stuff that's going on right now. I was kind of curious why that's not being broadcast to people who have interested in watching these players cannot see it. Because, again, he's very limited as to who can go to the stadium because of the numbers. I think that'd be great to see some of this stuff on the television. So
yeah,
I'm curious if you guys had any idea why they're not doing that.
They actually are. I would have to remember the exact state. I think it's kind of like a private thing that 1-0 kind of launched, if I remember correctly. It might even be available on the Comcast station for local Tulsa residents, if I remember correctly. I do know that it is on, and I can't say for sure until I look it up here. We'll answer this call here off the line. Thanks for the call. I can't say for sure if it's like a private subscription that you have to subscribe to for all 30 games, but I do know that they are airing them on those forms of a sort of a local type station. And because I remember reading that, but also because I was up on there watching on the concourse, up on the TVs, they had it put on a station. I think it's streaming available, if I remember, too, online. So you would have to basically, I think, pay for a subscription to watch a streaming.
Do you remember, was it through the Drillers website?
I think I saw it on the Drillers website. There was a story about them or on their website that said, here's how you can do it, because I do remember them thinking that same question the caller had, well, why isn't that being available to air? But it is, I think, again, you would have to pay money for it. But that's kind of what I thought, too, when I came in was, this should be something that maybe takes precedent over some of those replays and everything, too. But I got news for a lot of people. ESPN is not going to come down and pick up TCL baseball games with the money they wouldn't make off of it, to be honest. They just won't. So it does make sense to do what they are doing. And also what it does on the streaming service for some of these guys that are not from this area, it gives their families a chance to watch these games. For instance, a couple of guys that are from Florida, California, all over the country, some of these guys playing on this team are giving their families a chance to watch on that streaming service. We'll try to look it up here and find it for sure.
Just found it. If you go Texas Collegiate League website, I believe it's just TexasCollegiateLeague.com. It's right on the very front page. Live or video on demand.
Yeah.
All 150 games, $129. Your favorite team, home and away, $85, and then watch any game, just a single game pass is $7.25.
Okay, yeah, so it is a sort of a subscription, or at least pay to watch, pay-per-view type thing.
Yeah, on smart TV or mobile device.
Okay, there you go.
So you can through the website. Yeah,
through the website you can stream it. So yeah, they do have that availability. I'm glad that caller said something, because if you do want to check it out, you can, and there's where you go to do so. I'm glad that they had that ability, right now, even with everything going on, because. Let's be honest.
For example, tomorrow night, Tulsa Drillers play at home. There's literally a watch now button.
There you
go. Again, reading what it says is actually you'd be able to go back and watch videos on demand. So previous games also.
So we can watch replays too. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it says. Live or video on demand.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So there you go. Maybe if you missed one and wanted to see a certain game or play of that game, you might be able to go back and watch that too. Yeah. So yeah,
and I will say, just be on the head, look for stuff. I've been trying to promote it last week. Sam Henderson, good friend of the show, works part-time over at the News Press for me. He's doing an internship. There's actually a summer college league up in the Dakotas that didn't get canceled, and you can listen in on the radio call. So if you're just desperate to listen to some baseball, and you don't want to pay to watch the Drillers, they've got a free app. I was able to listen to his a little bit of the first game that he called up there. So I mean, just be on the lookout for stuff like that. If you're, we're starting to find out some sports are trying to come back. It's just searching high and low to find ways to watch or listen to him.
I love that, because he is doing literally what I did last year in a different spot, and so I know what he's experiencing, and I followed him on social media on plenty too, and it looks like he's having a great time. So calling those games in the Dakota areas, as you said, luckily for him, that's a spot that wasn't extremely affected by all of this, so they were able to continue sports. I will say, too, it was cool to see, after we had talked with Tom Holliday, cool to see him down there coaching, and I think he was the one that had the mask on most of the game, if not the entire game. I thought that had to have been pretty uncomfortable in the dugout setting, too. But also got to give credit to One Oak. They did a pretty great job. I mean, the display was great. They had everything going in terms of concessions. They're making.
Did they do fireworks for you guys?
They did fireworks.
Okay.
A great show. They're at least making money still in the way of concessions and all that and ticket prices. There were no vendors walking through the stands handing out beers and whatnot, so you did have to go and get your own.
Well, because I think that was the one thing that the NFL was planning on doing. Was if there's butts in the seats of you actually, or someplace, I don't know if all of them.
Miami said so.
Yeah. But I think that Kansas City's another one that's trying to work on that, where you can actually place your order on an app.
Yes.
And they'll bring it to you. And I know a lot of the newer stadiums, like I'm sure Atlanta and stuff like that, have that accessibility as well.
They see, and that's the thing is, I think people that are in charge of that are trying to figure out, kind of like you just talked about, how do we how do we maintain the social distancing, going to get your food and the bathroom lines and all that. They may be able to figure out, because we've seen that in college too. They've gone down to those details. And how are we going to stop this? How are we going to stop this? You may be able to do that with concessions. I don't know how you're going to police a bathroom line, okay? I'm just being honest. We've seen at halftime of any game.
Yeah.
That line is through the doors.
Maybe you have to, on that app, where
reserve a bathroom spot.
Reserve a spot.
Oh,
and
no.
when you know that you can follow the queue, and then when you know that your queue is, the top 5 people in the queue can go get ready.
Please tell me that's not where we're headed. Please, Jason.
Hey, if it means getting to watch live college or live NFL football, would you be willing to do that? To queue up to go to the bathroom? If that's the worst of what you have to do?
If that's the worst, I guess I would be able
to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I love.
Some people will complain.
Oh, yeah. I'd probably complain. Look, that's what I love bringing up, is when we say all this, and I like to ask people, to what limit would you go to actually see a live game, for instance? And I think that the answer has changed from earlier on in the year.
Yeah, it's not like I'm asking you to, use your bottle from your concessions.
We haven't gone that far, thank God. But we are talking about and you know what? You might be onto something there. If you can get them to invent the bathroom queue,
the bottles?
Or the bottles. No. Okay, let's not do that. We're trying to stay sanitary here. So bottom line, look, I gotta say, One Oak did a great job. It was put on very well. The team was fun to watch. Frisco was fun to watch them play too, just because that's some serious competition. Okay, it really is. You got a lot of D1 prominent baseball schools there with players going head to head. So it was fun. It was great to see live sports back again. And I'm proud of One Oak and Tulsa for coming together and getting also these players a chance to keep playing and then get a chance to stay exposed. I said that when I found out that where I was last year in the Mink League and the Cape Cod League, all those college baseball opportunities in the summer that were just canceled, there's some guys that they rely on that, man, to be seen, to keep them relevant to scouts, and then you've got the draft being limited as well. It's not a good time to be a mid-tier college baseball player. You're really going to have to start standing out in baseball. You really are.
Yeah.
So it's good to see, at least locally too, than a place like that at One Oak doing a good job keeping players in the loop. When we come back, we will get into the Stillwater Stars played on Saturday. We'll talk briefly about that. And, Major League Baseball is having some issues. I know that has been the story this entire offseason, but this is also with trying to get back to play.
Yeah.
Again, they're supposed to be back in 23 days now, is when they plan on restarting the season, but they're having issues regarding the testing of coronavirus for some players. So we'll talk about that.
Oh, when we come back, we should have Chris.
Oh, is Chris going to be with us too?
We, as far as I know.
Okay, good.
Said to end the show. So, I mean, we're our last segment should be with him.
He'll be back on too.
And, which works perfectly because we do have some more details still coming out on the Mahomes contract that started off the show.
So switch gears with us. If he's coming back with us when we start off, we may actually just end it with more Patrick Mahomes talk.
No problem with that.
Yeah, no issue with that.
There's enough Chiefs fans around here.
That's true. And look,
much as people don't believe it, there is.
Look, I know there is, and this contract is worthy of conversation. It is
the numbers. The numbers that I just saw, historical numbers.
Okay, so switch gears. We'll come back with Chris Young and talk Patrick Mahomes. That's next.
Yeah. Levitating off the blacktop. Used to struggle getting started, now I can't stop. Used to be the quiet kid in the sandbox. Now it's hands up every time that your man rocks. They ought to stop me coming in again. You mad?
Almost champions, West Division, playoffs bound and farther up the rivers. Time is old now, older than the trees, bigger than the mountains, taller than Drew Brees. Pat Mahomes, take me home to the place we belong. Kansas City to Miami.
Take us home, Pat Mahomes. Wow. He's officially going to do that with us here on this show. And it has been Christmas Day to be a Chiefs fan.
Well, like I told our caller just now, best Monday since the day after the Super Bowl.
Chris Young joins us now. Is that true, Chris?
I think so. I mean, I think hopefully more Super Bowls are in our future now after today.
Right?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to pass it along because it happened over the break. It is official now. Kansas City Chiefs just tweeted out, we have signed QB Patrick Mahomes to a 10-year extension. Mahomes secured with the Chiefs for the next 12 seasons. It's official.
I mean, I think, what is he now, 20, be like somewhere around 25?
24.
Yeah, I think they said 36, basically. So, I mean, at this point, it's essentially a lifetime contract, essentially, right?
Yeah, that's what he's going through 2031.
Right.
Chris, what was your initial reaction? Did you have to double take when you saw 10 years?
Committing that long term nowadays. I think, maybe with what we're going through with COVID, but maybe it, makes people think a little bit more about long-term security. But, oftentimes you see it where guys are taking, betting on themselves a little bit and doing certain things. But obviously the Chiefs put together a package to convince Mahomes that he needed to stay long-term, and this was something they could all agree to. And, sometimes long-term contracts are, not always work out to be the greatest situation, but you can't say that in this situation you'd want to have anybody else at quarterback looking forward, at least.
Well, and we're finding out some more number details coming in from Adam Schefter. Apparently, as originally he was speculating that it was going to have percentage ties to the cap later in his career. Apparently, there is no such language. It is straight up 10 years worth $450 million on the extension, with an injury guarantee of $140 million if he has a career-ending injury.
Wow.
So if he suffers an injury, he's guaranteed a quarter of what he's supposed to.
I told Jason that he can't lose in this situation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, and the Chiefs really can't lose. I mean, the guy delivered a Super Bowl. He's an MVP. He's the face of the NFL right now. And, there's obviously things that can happen, and there's risk involved in anything you do, and there's risk in this type of long-term contract, given the fact that he's just been in the league 3 years. It's definitely worth, hopefully what the reward will be.
Well, and I made the comment earlier in the show that right now, Mahomes and primetime Brady, in his career, prime in his career, are the only guys that I would say I'm comfortable with the 10-year contract. I mean, in your mind, is there anyone that you think deserves a 10-year contract?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think Brady in his prime, but other than that, I don't know that anybody right now. I mean, it would have to be somebody at the quarterback position. I don't know who would do that. I mean, Lamar Jackson was last year's MVP, but a guy that makes his living running the ball, you don't see, lasting as long. So, I think it remains to be seen. But the Chiefs haven't had stability at the quarterback position since Lynn Dawson. So
Exactly.
I think the fact that you have somebody in Pat Mahomes that can give you stability, hopefully the contract, the only downside to it is, after that rookie year contract, you have enough money, as I know I've talked about with both of you guys, to keep certain people around. And, with the Chiefs, the way that they're rolling, you want to be able to keep pieces around him and keep that defense strong. And so, you got to trust Beach and those guys who have put the team together, that they have a plan going forward. And obviously it starts with Pat Mahomes, but you want to surround him with better people, because you look at the Patriots and eventually that's what caught up to them, not being able to surround Tom Brady with enough weapons.
Well, and I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that he's sticking with the 2 years left on his rookie contract. So it's not like you're suddenly paying him $45 million this year and next year. So in your mind, do you think that the benefit of that, like you said, is you're able to shore up over the next couple of years some of those contracts, maybe like a Chris Jones, who's obviously winning a lot of money right now, because of the fact that you're not having to pay so much for Patrick Mahomes the next few years, because you're still technically on his rookie contract.
No, that's right, and I think that's probably the balance of why you give Mahomes a long-term deal, is that he gives you the flexibility of staying on that deal for a couple more years, and I think both sides working together on that to get something that's beneficial. So in a situation like this, in a negotiation like this, there's got to be some give and take. Both sides have to give a little bit, and I think that's what it shows.
Chris Young, head women's tennis coach here at OSU, joining us on the afternoon sports drive.
Avid Chiefs fan.
Noted Super Chiefs fan, we can call him. Joins a couple more here on the afternoon sports drive. And Chris, I thought when I saw this too, I wondered how intense it was, or how quick it really was, when the Chiefs went in talks with Mahomes and said, We've seen that you said you want to be a Chief for life. Let's put the money where the mouth is here and go straight in for 10 years. They dove in, I think, head first with this and said, let's see what he says. If anything, he knocks it down to a couple years, and we're still okay with that. Do you think that if the Chiefs front office was being completely honest, they'd say that they knew for sure he was going to go for that long?
Well, that's a good question. I think That's the thing that you would love to know as a fan, is to be, behind the scenes on some of these negotiations and really hear how this works. And, these types of things didn't just start after the season that he had this year. This is something that probably, has continued to happen throughout this whole season. And when he has the MVP season, 2 years ago, you got to start looking forward to locking him up. And really, from the very beginning of him showing what he can do, the wheels start to be in motion of how do we put something together that's going to be beneficial. And as he keeps going, and as the team's having success this past year, I'm sure that was got longer and longer for what both sides probably wanted.
How do you think that conversation is going to go Friday when you're on the show with Casey?
Well, I mean, I don't think we all know Casey. He's not going to give in, and he's probably going to think that it's a very questionable deal, and it remains to be seen. And in his position, he's going to continue to take the wait and see approach. And I mean, I can understand that's the position that he's taken. And now Pat Mahomes has said, okay, we're going to see how this goes now for 12 more years. So I think by the end of his career, if he isn't one of the best Chiefs quarterbacks ever, that's going to be a shock. And I think he's going to put himself, in my opinion, in the category of being, in my opinion, one of the best to ever play the position if he keeps going the way he is.
Yeah. Obviously, it's hard to ask anyone of what you might think somebody may be thinking right now. But in your mind, can you see Andy Reid playing out, coaching out that contract, or do you think he retires before the end of this 12-year contract for Patrick Mahomes?
I can't imagine that Andy Reid coaches that long. I mean, I don't, obviously
be into his 70s, yeah.
His head, but maybe he coaches the next 2 years, and then the Chiefs have some changes to be made, and maybe Bieniemy or somebody else takes the reins and they start grooming the next person. I would think that process could start happening if they feel like Bieniemy or one of the staff guys could take that over.
Chris Young joining us here on the afternoon sports drive. See, that's one of the things that I think is kind of overlooked here is we know just how big us as Chiefs fans, Andy Reid is a part of all of the success with Patrick Mahomes. Do you think, Chris, though, that when it comes down to players, that's been the initial response? Well, we're not going to be able to keep players as long as they want on this roster with that money. But do you think that with a talent like Mahomes and a coach like Andy Reid, that mixture right there, you might be able to go into the draft even or a trade every now and again, find a guy that might not be top tier, but in that offense with that quarterback, he could become something special?
Oh, no question. I mean, I think you see that with McCole Hardeman, and what they were able to do and how quickly he transitioned. So I think that, that's going to happen with the running back position even this year. I think that, offensively, they're going to be able to put enough weapons around him. I think it's really going to be important to have a good offensive line to protect Mahomes because, injuries are going to be the one factor that could make this deal not worth, paying out over the course of it. And then the defense, the defense got a lot better as the season wore on, but as the defense gets better, those guys are going to want more money, and how do you balance all that out?
I just want to bring this up for you and obviously other Chiefs listeners. Patrick Mahomes just tweeted out during our last break a little video, basically kind of a tribute to the fans and whatnot of him re-signing, and it closes with one simple message. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Let me pull it back up. We're chasing a dynasty.
Yeah. Isn't that great that it's confirmed? Because we said, a lot of people, that was the initial response after the Super Bowl. This is the start of a dynasty.
Yeah. I mean, again, as a fan, you're obviously thinking that, but I mean, everything I'm seeing now is how many Super Bowls do the Chiefs win now with Patrick Mahomes between now and the end of this 12-year contract? In your mind, what's the reality or what's kind of your expectation?
Boy, I mean, I would think, if they can win 2 more, I think that would be huge, maybe 3. It's hard to think that, you can win more than, 1 every 3-4 years. It's just tough to do. We've seen that, we've seen that over time. And obviously the standard is what the Patriots have done, but that's the golden standard. And so, I think you got to think about it a little bit in terms of just being realistic. And I think that if they can get, 3, I think that would be amazing.
Well, and then that's one of the things that I've seen when I try to compare the Patriots to the Chiefs. It's what are the main 2 factors? Well, head coach and quarterback, fantastic. Wide receivers, running backs, defense has been pretty good for a while now. But other skill position players, they're here and there. Same. I mean, the Chiefs. That's kind of what it brings me back to my point is I think that they can find success with ultimately anybody in this offense. It's going to be really hard to fail in this offense. I think too. I don't know about you, Chris, but it's crazy because when we go into the start of these seasons, at least the last 2 for me now, it's been like, okay, let's see if I can pick the Chiefs record here. It's hard for me to pick a loss every now. I mean, I looked at the AFC and I'm like, who's going to beat us? I mean, we've taken care of the Ravens. The Patriots don't have Tom Brady. And in the NFC, it's like, okay, I think we can handle the Saints, honestly. I don't think we'll have a huge issue with the Bucs, to be completely honest. But in your mind, what do you think if you had to say record-wise for this upcoming season? Let's say we play a full NFL season. What's your best guess for the Chiefs record?
I would say 13-3, I think, is realistic, type. I mean, maybe 12-4, but I think if Pat Mahomes is healthy, I think 12-13 wins is definitely doable.
Well, I just have to say, 3 Super Bowl championships for him is perfect, and I don't know if you meant to do this, because that would put the Chiefs at 5 Super Bowl titles, and that would tie them with the Cowboys. So, and we know the Cowboys are going to win over the next 12 years. So that puts you on a level playing field with Casey. So that makes sense.
Well, I hadn't thought about it, but I'm glad that works out that way.
So does Dak Prescott now, Chris, does he ask for 13 years?
Well, he needs to win a Super Bowl or MVP first.
Or a playoff game.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, he might ask for it, and I mean, the Cowboys might just give it. Who knows? I mean, if he can get it, more power to him.
Yeah.
I think that there's always somebody that's going to try to one-up, but I think if Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs feel good about it, then we're good.
Yeah. CY, thanks for joining us. Hope everybody's doing well, family and obviously your extended family with the Cowgirl program up there.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Take care.
Yeah, that's Chris Young joining us. Huge Chiefs fan, as you well know. I love that perspective. You know what? It's funny because all the talk was going to be Dak Prescott is going to be the richest man in football. And that was the talk. And it was all offseason. What are they going to pay him? Now look what happened. So if I'm him...
No way Dallas pays $45 million.
Yeah, no. They talked about that being the rumor at one point, and everyone was like, but why and how? And then when you see it, though, for a different level of quarterback, it's like, okay, makes sense. I mean,
Market's been set. There's no way Dak gets $45 million.
Not at all. This has been the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Big thank you to Chris Young there joining us at the end. That's Jason Elmquist. I'm Patrick Wheeler. We'll be back here, same place, same time tomorrow to talk everything sports. Until then.